Today we're going to cover cleaning the AR-15 rifle. You've been out shooting all day and now it's time to clean the weapon. It's not that difficult to do, but you have to keep in mind you really would rather do it inside on something like this table with a contrasting color than outside, because there are a lot of small bits that can get lost, and if you lose them, that's it. Some of the tools that we'll be using today are, we have a small screwdriver for helping to remove the firing pin retainer pin. Obviously a patch, slotted patch holder, your cleaning rod with a 22 caliber bore brush. I have a 22 caliber cotton swab that I like to use sometimes. Plenty of Q-tips, old t-shirt cut up into patches, some Rem oil or some brake free, your choice on what kind of lubricant you're going to use. We'll cover lubricant as far as when we get done cleaning it here in just a minute. If your weapon's equipped with a sling, the first thing you're going to have to do is remove the sling from the weapon. Once you get it off, you're going to inspect your sling, make sure there's no rips, tears, or anything like that in it. If there are, you're going to repair or replace them. If there's a lot of mud or dirt on there, you can take this with a mild soap and water in the sink and kind of wash it off. If you're out in the field and you're having to do this, then you can just use a stream or whatever. You just want to get the muddy bits off of it so that it doesn't get all jacked up. But once you get that done, you're going to set it off to the side. You can collapse your stock down. The first thing you're going to do is you'll see there's two receiver pins. One, the forward and rear receiver pins. You're going to push those out. You'll see they protrude a little bit from either side. You're just going to pull those two pins all the way out and separate the two receivers. You have upper and lower receiver now. Okay, once you've got the upper and lower receiver separated, just pull the charging handle to the rear until the bolt drops out, and then pull out the charging handle. And we'll get to the hand guards here in a minute. As far as the lower receiver goes, you don't have to do it, but I just push that down out of the way to give you some clarity. That's where your little screwdriver is going to come in handy. Is there's a little detent pin right here that holds the buffer and buffer spring in. You're going to push that down until the buffer rides up over it, and then pull the whole thing out. And then you can separate the buffer and the buffer spring and keep those there. If you've been out and you do have a collapsible stock, a lot of times in this hole back here you'll get some dirt and other crud. To remove the stock is a pretty simple deal. Instead of pushing it down like this to collapse the stock, lift it the other way and it'll clear the pin and you can pull it right off. Now you can clean down in there, you can clean the buffer tube and everything like that. So we're going to set that off to the side for right now, and then we're going to go for the hand guards. You have the delta ring right here. Some of them are tighter than others, but you're going to push that down until it clears the hand guards. And it may be a kind of a tough fit, and again, that's where your little screwdriver can come in handy, is help you get a little bit of push down on weapons that are brand new, that don't have a lot of use to them. The spring that holds that delta ring in there is really tight, and it does take a little bit to get it off. So there you've got your hand guards separated so you can clean under them and everything. Now we're going to get down to the bolt. Okay, the bolt is a multi-piece little gadget. You'll notice on this side there's a cotter pin. You're going to pry that out with your screwdriver, pull it out, and that'll release your firing pin. You're going to set that down, and then this right here is the little bolt that, or not bolt, but the little pin that holds the bolt in place. You're going to turn it to the side and remove it, and then the bolt should come right out. now you have the bolt carrier, and it's almost completely broken down. You can use your firing pin, you can use your little screwdriver, a brass pin if you have one, or something else, but you'll notice where the extractor sits, there's a small pin, and a lot of times you'll get a lot of gunk built up underneath that extractor, and it won't allow it to extract rounds. So you're gonna kind of push down on it, and then you're gonna find something that'll fit in that hole, and you're gonna push that pin out until you can grab it with your fingers. Make sure you maintain some pressure on that extractor because there is a spring under there, and then just kind of pull it loose, and that's what you should have. You should have a small spring with a little washer around it, and then you've got your bolt. Okay. The other thing you want to pay attention to is on the back side of the bolt. If you can zoom in a little bit on this, you'll see that you've got 3 rings around the back side of the bolt, kind of like piston rings. You don't, if you look, they have little notches in them, and you don't want those lined up. You want them offset. So when you go to put the thing back together, you should have 3 different rings with 3 different openings in those rings. What that does is that helps seal the gas in that bolt. Okay, and now we're going to get down to the cleaning part. I went and got a couple of little shop cloths, the disposable shop cloths. You can use a towel or whatever you want. First thing we're going to do is we're going to wipe down each one of these parts and get all the gunk that we can off of it and everything, just to kind of get them clean and dry is what we want. And we're also going to inspect them. If you look down here on the extractor, there's a little lip. You want to make sure that's not broken, that there's no nicks in it or anything like that, because that's the part that goes over the rim of the cartridge, and it helps pull it out. It also makes it easier to grab these little bits when they're not all greasy, grimy. So once we've got all the bolt cleaned off more or less and all the pieces, and all, you're going to also want to inspect your firing pin. You're going to want to make sure there's no cracks in it. The tip of the firing pin is still intact, because a lot of times that'll chip off a little bit and you won't get a good strike on the primer when it goes when the hammer falls and it does hit it. And you just mainly want to get as much of the crud off there as you can. At this point, you're going to want to take one of your Q-tips, and this little track down in here, you're just going to want to kind of clean that out and make sure that there's no foreign objects in there. Clean out the back end of the bolt by stretching that out a little bit and just getting down in there, running it through as far as you can, which would be about right there, and then pulling it back out, get it nice and clean. Same thing in there. Clean in between these little ears on the bolt. Get all that cleaned up. Everything, set that off to the side. And then the same thing kind of applies to the bolt carrier, is you want to just give it a quick rub down real fast. You want to make sure that the gas block on the top is tight and is secure. If you look, it should have the 2 Allen head screws in there, and then those should have been peened in to lock them in place. If they're not, they can wiggle loose. If it is loose, you want to get an Allen wrench the correct size, tighten it down, and then get a pin, a punch of some kind, and just kind of peen those in so it stays. You don't want to go too far overboard on it or you'll break it, but it needs to be tight. If there's a loose fit in there, you don't get the right amount of gas flowing down into that block, and it won't push the bolt back. Again, you can use a Q-tip down in here. You want to clean this out, make sure there's no crud. If you look at that, this thing's we put a few rounds through it today, and we need to get all that out of there. This is where you could use something like brake free if you wanted. Spray a little brake free on one of your Q-tips. Don't need a lot. Just give it a little whack, and that'll help break up some of the carbon in there. You can also use something like Hoppy's number 9 or Otter's cleaning solutions to clean this out. Okay, once you've got the bolt carrier cleaned up, you're going to want to put them back together. You're going to start with the extractor, make sure it fits down in there nice. Take that extractor pin, line up your holes, and push the extractor pin back in.
I'm gonna go fishing.
And then get it where it goes all the way through, because if it doesn't, then you're not going to be able to put the bolt in and it's not going to close. So that's how that should look when you're done. Everything should be nice and flush. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to take the bolt and drop it down inside the bolt carrier. Put your firing pin, the bolt retaining pin in, and turn it so that the firing pin will drop down in there nicely. Turn it over, find the hole, drop the firing pin in. It should go all the way to the front. Take your firing pin retaining pin, put it in to where it comes out the other side, make sure it's all in there flush, and then the bolt should move nice and easy like that. Now you'll notice I didn't lubricate the bolt at all here. What the reason for that is here in a minute what I'm going to do is I'm going to take just a single little shot of brake free like that, and I'm going to work it around the bolt so that it moves freely. Reason I'm not putting a lot of lubrication on this right now is because it's been a little dusty lately, and ARs aren't big fans of dust. They will jam up, so you don't want to overdo the lubrication on it. But once your bolt's back together, just set it off to the side. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to concentrate on the upper receiver in the barrel. Give your cleaning brush a little shot of brake free, and then always come from the muzzle of the weapon down. Is feed the cleaning rod down through the weapon until it comes out the back side, and then pull it back through. You should really only need 1 or 2 shots with the brush as you go through, and then you want to take a look. You can just hold it up to the light, look down through there, and you should be able to see the rifling really clean and really nice. Okay, once you've done that, you're going to remove that cleaning brush, and you can go with either the 22 caliber cotton swab or the slotted tip, Take one of your small patches that you made out of an old t-shirt, fit it through the slotted tip here, get it where it's even on both sides. And what I like to do is before I do anything else is I run at least one clean patch through and see what kind of crud I can pull out with it. Now you notice that's kind of grungy, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take another pad, I'm going to slip it through there, and then this one gets a shot of break free to help break up anything that cleaning brush left in there. So we're going to just run that through there. And then give it a twist. And yes, I am using the same patch twice. But I won't use it more than that. And you notice how dirty that came out. So then we're just going to get rid of that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to just run clean patches down through the bore of this weapon until we come out with hardly anything or nothing at all on them. And swapping out patches each time. Once we get the weapon cleaned out like this, and we've run it through a couple times where we're getting next to nothing or nothing on it, we'll do one more patch. I think we'll be good to go on that. Alright, last time. Alright, that one came out fairly clean, so I don't think we need to run any more down through there. We're pretty much done with our cleaning rod for now. You're going to take one of your Q-tips, give it a shot of break free. Kind of just get a little bit on there, and then you're going to clean in and around the chamber with the Q-tip, kind of get some of that messiness off, and then down here around the gas tube, you're definitely going to want to get that clean. If you fired a lot of rounds through your weapon, especially the Russian ammo, seems to be very prevalent nowadays, you're going to want to get some pipe cleaners, just good old-fashioned pipe cleaners, and clean down inside that gas tube as far as you can. A chamber brush, if you have one, will help get everything cleaned out of this this chamber, and that way you don't have any little bits left in there. Once you've got that done, I'm going to move on to your hand guards. Like I said, you just want to give them a quick wipe down, make sure there's no oil, grease, or dirt built up in there. And once you've got that, like I said, those clean up pretty quick. And you can just set those off to the side. When it comes to the lower receiver, I know if you have access to it, it's possible to do is take a parts cleaner that's very non-corrosive, and you can clean out in there. I don't recommend it. Same thing that I saw a bunch of guys do in basic was run them under hot tap water. Well, it does clean things out really good. It also causes rust on springs and things, and you don't want to do that either. So what we're going to do is you're just going to use Q-tips, a small toothbrush if you have one, and things like that to get it cleaned out. You're trying to get down in all those little bitty bits down in there to clean up as much of that as you can and get it as clean as you can. When it comes to your buffer tube, you're going to just basically take a look down there, see what kind of dirt's in there. There shouldn't be too much, but you can just run a rag down there. If you do have a lot of crud built up in there, you can take a 12 gauge shotgun mop and attach it to one section of your cleaning rod and just run that down there a few times to kind of clean that out. Same thing with the stock. We're going to look down inside the hole down here, make sure there's nothing in there, and if there's not, we're good to go. If there is, you just clean it out. Your buffer, you're going to just wipe that down. Same thing with your buffer spring. Get that wiped down, and once that's done, you can put the buffer back together onto the spring and put it back into the weapon. Okay, you're gonna want your hammer down when you do that. Push that back down into the buffer tube until it locks in there like that, and you can tell it's in there, and just give it a shove, it won't come back out. You're gonna reattach your stock pretty much the same way you took it off. Just line it up, lift up on the lever a little bit, and it should clear it. You should be able to lock it in there. And that gives you what you need right there. I'll move on to the upper receiver. Now comes the fun part, is putting the handguards back on. I always start with the lower handguard. For some reason it just tends to go in a little bit easier. The delta ring, you're going to slide it down like you did before, and then just work that in there until it snaps into place like that. And then you're going to do the same thing with the upper handguard. Make sure, be very careful of the gas tube. You don't want to twist this too much and bend the gas tube or anything like that. But you get your delta ring, you got your upper receiver, the handguards back together. When it comes to the charging handle and everything, putting the bolt back in, if you flip it over, you'll notice that there's a small indentation for these ears that are on the charging handle to go into. Just set that in there and give it a little bit of a forward slide. Take your bolt carrier, make sure the bolt is all the way out, slide it into the groove in the charging handle, and then just give the whole thing a push, and it should lock in. Alright? Next thing we're going to do is we're going to put the receivers back together. Is put the receivers back together. You just mate them up and push the pins in until they lock. Okay, now that's all the cleaning part. The next part we got to do is what's known as a function check to make sure that you did get it put back together correctly. Okay, so we're going to charge the weapon, make sure that the hammer's back. We're going to place the weapon on safe. We're going to pull the trigger. Nothing should happen. Okay. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to move the selector to fire, and we're going to pull the trigger. You should hear a click. Hold the trigger to the rear. While the trigger's to the rear, pull the charging handle all the way to the back so the bolt comes back. Let it go. All right. You should hear it. Then you're going to release the trigger. You should hear a click. Alright? Then you're going to pull the trigger again, and you should hear the hammer fall. Alright? Unless you have a select fire weapon, that's it for the function check. If everything went well, you weren't able to pull the trigger while on safe, when you put it on fire, the hammer fell, you held it back, you charged it, you released the trigger, you heard a small click, and then you pulled the trigger again and the hammer fell. The last thing you're going to do is put your sling back on, and that's going to be a matter of taste, so I'm not going to show you how to do that because I figure that's that's going to be on you. Well, that's just that's it for cleaning an AR-15. If you have any questions, feel free to email us, and as always, we thank you for watching us, and train to survive.